United States of America.
The Affordable Care Act was touted to be his greatest legislative achievement.
We are done.
But it's nothing short of a disaster. According to a report, only 6 people signed up for Obamacare on day 1.
The website wasn't working effectively on October 1st. I think that is a dog bites man story.
With this new change with insurance, possibly going the way it's going to go, and the medical field changing the way it's going to go.
Our week-long series on the missed Obamacare warning signs continues.
And I don't know if I'd be talking to you right now.
Hannity starts right here, right now.
And welcome to Hannity. Tonight for the entire hour, we'll be joined by a studio audience from both sides of the aisle to debate the president's disastrous health care overhaul. You're going to hear from real people, real cancellation letters, real rate hike shock. But first, newly released documents by the House Oversight Committee reveal that on day 1 of the Obamacare exchanges, get this, only 6 Americans, only 6 people signed up for it. And that's not the only embarrassing part. It's a pathetic part of it. We bring in our studio audience. Good to see everybody. All right. Is there one liberal here? I'm just looking for one that will admit that the American people were lied to. If you like your plan, Doug Schoen.
Clear didn't tell the truth about it, and it's clear that we got to figure out why and what we do about it. But we got to make the law work. We can't just trash Obama.
Why do we have to make a law work if it was sold under false pretenses?
Land, Sean.
It's a
so was slavery was a law of the land too, but we overturned those.
But let's go through the. So you admit we were lied to.
Clear.
If you like your plan, you can keep your plan.
Clearly hasn't happened.
All right. The average family per savings per year, $2,500 lie.
Yeah, it's clearly not the case.
$900 billion cost lie.
Clearly not the case.
The website's going to be user-friendly.
Well, give them until the end of November to see if it becomes user-friendly.
He said that the day before they rolled it out.
I understand.
Rick Unger, you going to shock me tonight?
I'm going to shock you. I'm going to tell you that 3% of Americans were lied to, because that's the number we're talking about. And having said that, I'm going to ask if there's any conservatives in this room that will admit that conservatives have been lying about Obamacare for 3 years in many ways.
Come on, what are you talking about?
See, that's the difference. That's the difference. You won't admit it.
This is not the Rick Unger show, so that you don't have to answer that question. But let me tell you why what you said is false. And I am going to go to page 34,552. I almost sound, where's Betsy McCoy? I almost sound like her. She's got the whole health care plan there.
I've got it here.
The Register of our federal government predicted back in July of 2010 that 66% of all small employer plans will go away. That means you can't keep your small employer if you work for a small employer. 45% of large employer plans will go away. And we now know that about 16 of the 19 million individual plans will go away. Forbes magazine did the math. That's 93 million Americans. 93. Am I right, Betsy?
Yes, and don't forget to add the many, many seniors, millions of seniors in Medicare Advantage plans who received letters this month telling them they're losing their doctor because of the Obamacare cuts. Those Medicare Advantage plans are dropping the specialists that the seriously ill patients depend on.
Sean, I got a letter last week. I have a small business and I lost my plan. They gave me 5 options to look at. All 5 are worse than the option I had before that. So the most comparable one is a 48% increase. So I called the insurance company just to see what they had to say about it. And then she said they've been getting calls left and right. And she said, we can go into the Obamacare website and try it out. Of course I tried, couldn't get through. So really now, that's another employee for me that's being taken away. Multiply that by, like you said, millions of companies. It's now killing the economy.
Keisha, 93 million, and they knew in July of 2010. First of all, I know you. I know your daughter. If your daughter lied to you, how much trouble is she going to be in?
She would be in a lot of trouble, but I won't say that this is a lie. This is a new law that's being implemented, and it's going to have flaws.
Wait a minute. The president said in September, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan, period. Now, they knew in July of 2010 that wasn't true, according to their documents, not Sean. I didn't make this up, not my documents.
But we have to be realistic. There's always something that may not turn out the way we predicted.
Okay, your daughter's going to say to you, Mommy, you need to be realistic.
She won't say that. She will.
Yeah, Judith, I see you.
The president is not a health care expert. He said what he said because that's what he was told. And if this plan needs fixing, which clearly it does, it's incumbent upon Republicans now to work with Democrats, just as Doug suggests, to make this plan work.
Wait a minute. Ed Rollins, this president does know a lot of things. He doesn't know. I read it in the paper about Fast and Furious. I had no idea we were spying on the Pope and Chancellor Merkel. No idea.
The bottom line here is the biggest lie of this whole thing is it's not going to work. It's not going to pay for itself. They say they can do it for $1 trillion. That means taking $750 billion out of Medicare. There are 12,000 new people a day going into Medicare. At the end of the day, there's not going to be sufficient doctors. There's not going to basically be sufficient money, and it financially cannot make it.
That is the reality. We're going to get deep into that. Noel, why are so few people on the left? I've argued with James Carville, Bob Beckel this week, a lot of liberals here. Rick Unger, believe it or not, he'll be arguing with me before the end of the show. Why do they accept the fact that this was predicated on a huge lie and they don't admit it?
I think a lot of people are banking on helping Obama create and protect his legacy. And I think, a lot of this, you remember the shutdown. This was over, defund Obamacare, and they wouldn't budge. Now look at it unraveling, and look what they have been defending and protecting is a big epic failure.
Well, I'm a liberal, and I have no interest, with all due respect, Noel, to protecting the president's legacy at all. What I have an interest in is doing what's right by the American people. I do believe the president made a presumption that people would not want junk policies and that they wanted a higher standard of health care in this policy.
You're putting words in his... Wait a minute. Hang on a second. One at a time. You are putting words in the president's mouth. What part of, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan, period...
He was imprecise in his language, Sean, in all fairness. Let me just say this one point.
Imprecise language 100 times?
He should have said the full statement, which was if your current health care policy meets the new higher standard of health care in this country, you can keep it. If it doesn't, it's junk and it will be trash.
Hang on. Katie, Jay Carney actually said today, if you like your plan, but it's a crummy plan, you can't keep your plan. Right. So now, if that's what the president wants, everyone's making excuses.
First of all, this idea that you're saying that people's plans are crummy is very patronizing. Second of all, this was a lie that Barack Obama and the Democrats sold to the American people because they knew that if they sold everyone this idea that they would lose their health insurance, but it would get replaced by a plan that was double or triple what they were paying then, it would never have passed. They lied about it because they knew if they were going to tell the American people the truth, it would have never happened. That's the bottom line.
Wait a minute, that's key. Kirsten, yeah.
Really, the reason why we were sold this is because for a lot of people in the Obama administration and the Democrats, they believe that the end justifies the means. So their means are good. They have good intentions. And yes, we need a better healthcare system in this country, hands down. And you know me, Sean, I'm a conservative. I believe that. We need healthcare reform. But we need insurance reform that's coupled with tort reform. We need major change, and people are afraid of change. So that's why they said we got to sell this hard. Yes, as well as the free market. Yes.
You've lived this life.
Let me tell you. I've lived it, I've been it, and I've abused it as well. This is one of the great abuses, and it demonstrates the old cliche, power corrupts, and absolute power is the worst. I've seen it with Republicans. We never quite had absolute power because we didn't have the ability to stop a filibuster in the center. They had absolute power. They didn't give a darn. They weren't willing to listen, and they adopted a plan that unfortunately is doomed for failure. And I say unfortunately. You cannot. You've heard the story, Catch Me If You Can. You've seen that thing? You think you're going to catch all these young, healthy people and make them sign up and pay more money for what? Not for themselves, but because they're going to be part of the greater pool. So that's what they call the death spiral as it relates to insurance. Well, you got to change this plan significantly. The other thing is, you bring in some jackass company. You got great organizations. You got Microsoft. You got Google. You got the thing that kids Facebook. You bring them in to set up the platform. Don't bring in your cronies, and I won't go into whose crony that is, to set this up, doomed for failure.
Now they brought in a crony to fix it.
So, if you got to bring in the experts, number one, and don't tie it to politics. Number two, you should have brought in the actuaries, the insurance people. You should have been willing to listen, and you should have been willing to compromise. And so you now have this incredible failure, and you cannot make. You think you're going to get young people paying more money? For what?
You're going to pay?
They're going to say, and you think you have enough IRS agents to track them down?
We got to take it. I promise we're going to get to you, and you can respond to the young person question. I can't. I love how the president now said that that we're going to bring in the best and brightest to fix it. I'm like, why don't we bring in the best and brightest to start it? You know, makes sense. All right, we'll come back. We'll take a break. Much more with our studio audience tonight. But first, coming up tonight on Hannity.
With this new change with insurance, possibly going the way it's going to go, and the medical field changing the way it's going to go, I'd be scared to be in the shoes that I was in when I was fighting cancer 7 years ago. Very scared.
Our week-long You Were Warned series continues with two real Americans affected by Obamacare. Now, that cancer survivor who shared her story with us back in 2009, she's going to join me after the break to tell us her story and how the implementation will affect and impact her family. And then we will reveal another alarming number about the Obamacare enrollees and the grave concern that it is causing. You don't want to miss that. You're going to hear from real Americans, real cancellations, real rate shock, all straight ahead. And welcome back to Hannity. We are continuing tonight our week-long series, which we have entitled You Were Warned. Now, back before Obamacare was ever passed, we highlighted right here on this show the dangers of what would happen if the law was in fact implemented. Now, my next guest, she shared her story with us during a Universal Nightmare special that we had in 2009 about her fight against cancer and her concerns about what could have happened if the changes in health insurance were in place when she was in fact diagnosed. Take a look.
I was diagnosed with, they said, a walk-in-the-park cancer. Had surgery by a gynecologic oncologist. After the surgery, he says, no, it's much worse than we thought. You have no more than 6 weeks to live. Don't even try chemo. You'll die from the treatment of chemo. The chemo won't even touch the cancer. And that was it.
Catherine didn't accept that answer. She went to MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston for a second opinion.
If she did not have that second opinion, she wouldn't be able to participate in these interviews.
If I was living in a country where you don't have a choice to go to a specialist, I would have done whatever it would have taken to come to the United States of America. And here I am today, 7 years, getting ready to be 8 years next month.
For Catherine, those 8 years have meant seeing her children grow up and the birth of her 2 grandchildren.
With this new change with insurance, possibly going the way it's going to go, and the medical field changing the way it's going to go, I'd be scared to be in the shoes that I was in when I was fighting cancer 7 years ago. Very scared. And I don't know if I'd be talking to you right now.
Joining me now, the woman you just heard from, Catherine Hale, and also in our studio audience tonight is Natalie Willis, who received notice that her plan would be terminated and all of her new options would be more expensive and provide less coverage. Ladies, thanks so much for being with us. Thank you. Well, first of all, Catherine, I guess 6 weeks now has turned into 12 years. Thank God. You're doing well, I hope?
Praise the Lord. Thank you, John. I am.
That's really, really good news. All right, where are you now? Obamacare, you were one of the people speaking out very early on. You were on our Universal Nightmares special we had. Where's your plan now? Where are you with healthcare now?
Well, I've given it my personal name. It's the so-called no-brainer fair health care. We are able to compare apples to apples in our situation. My husband is still employed with the same national company. We've aged a little bit. We're on the other side of 50, but no major changes in our lives. But our insurance life has drastically changed. The good coverage that we were able to have is no longer available. There is a lesser tier of coverage available at a higher cost. The out-of-pocket is much higher. It is so high for some people that they are offering a gap coverage in $15,000 and $30,000 increments. Wow. So that if you do become ill, have a heart attack, have a stroke, you're not going to dip into your retirement savings or lose your car or your home or tell your kids they can't go to college.
What about you with your pre-existing condition and the fact that you had cancer?
Life insurance is not an option. And as far as my care, you know, my follow-up care that I receive at MD Anderson, it's going to cost us a lot more money.
So, in other words, are you with the same employer just to?
Yeah, that's what I was saying, that we are able to compare apples to apples because employment situations are still the same.
So you're being offered less coverage, an increased premium, increased deductible. And how do you know this is directly related to Obamacare? Are they telling you, is that the reason that they're giving you officially?
Yes, we have a very nice pamphlet from the insurance company, and it doesn't directly say it, but they don't have to.
Yeah.
I mean, it does say the law mandates. There's little innuendos in there. We know what it is. And the other sad part about this, go ahead.
No. Were you going to read from it?
Well, I was just going to tell also that the other sad part about this change is we have no freedom. It's supposed to be fair insurance for everybody, and that would be great if that could happen, but this is not the way to do it. And we're also forcing Catholics and other Christians to pay for abortion and medicines and birth control that is against the religion.
No, we had a court decision today on that in the 2nd District Court in D.C. All right, hang on right there. And I want to bring in Natalie. How are you?
Good, how are you?
From Los Angeles?
Yes.
Married?
Yes.
29 years old?
Yes.
Okay, and you have a website, babysleeptrainer.com. Where were you when I had my 2 kids?
I don't know. How old are they?
But do you train 14-year-olds to go to sleep? If you do, whatever that is, you're going to make a lot of money real fast. All right. So you have your own company. By the way, that's pretty cool.
Thanks.
What a great idea. And I bet business is booming, I hope?
Yeah. I can't complain. Yes, it's doing pretty well.
Tell us about your health issues. Healthcare.
So I have always carried my own health insurance plan. It's always been very important to me that I be insured. When my husband left law school, I had to get my own plan, so I found an insurer. After I had been denied by other insurers for some pre-existing condition, I was accepted by my insurer. So I carried a great plan. After I had my son, I decided to step down and take what was considered their catastrophic plan. So this plan has a $1,500 deductible and a $3,000 out-of-pocket maximum. I've been to the doctor several times. I've never felt like I've been gouged. Love my plan. Oh, didn't go on my husband's plan. Great plan. So now all of the plans that my insurer currently carries are all being canceled, and they're being replaced by new compliant plans. So if I want to pay the same premium that I'm paying now, I will be doubling or tripling my deductible and doubling my out-of-pocket maximum. If I want to keep some sort of equivalent coverage, then I'll be paying about 40% more. There really isn't equivalent coverage with my insurer, so I'm looking at either having to pick something from the exchange.
Yeah. And by the way, so everyone knows, you've been on healthcare.gov. By the way, you need to talk to Ainsley Earhart. We've been trying here 4 weeks to get on this.
So I've been on, so the California, so the California plan is okay. It doesn't work, or rather the exchange is okay. It doesn't work super great with my browser. But it's okay. I've been able to plan, there's I think 30 plans available to me, 6 different providers. I've gone and looked at each one individually, checked what my, like what it would cover, what hospitals I could go to. But there's really nothing that's the same. Any way that I do this, I'm either going to get way less care for the same amount of money, or I'm going to have to pay more.
What do you think, and I hope Rick Unger's paying attention in the background, because I'm going to beat him up about your case in a minute. But in all seriousness, you're 29 years old, your husband worked hard to become a lawyer, you built a great business, you were responsible, you want your own care, you want to keep your plan. If you like it, you like your plan?
This is really
It's not a crummy plan?
No, this is what I have to say. If I wanted a plan that covered more, I would have gotten a plan that covered more.
What do you think about your president of the United States that now has lied to you?
I like to think the best about people, so maybe he was misinformed. Maybe he didn't read Obamacare. I don't know.
What's worse, lying or not reading it?
I don't know. It's really long, so probably changed. I don't know what to.
Can I ask a question?
For me to say anything
what would
bad.
be worse, not reading it or lying about it? If that's the 2 options you're providing, which one's worse?
Lying is worse. That's probably why I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. Lying would be worse.
So you're going with the option he didn't read it.
I think earlier what someone else had said that they want the ends justify the means. I'm going to say that that's probably what happened.
No, I agree.
I agree. That's I'm sure that he knew and that he thought we have to convince people to do this anyway.
Hope you liberals were paying attention. Real Americans.
Fix it.
What?
And to do interstate insurance purchases to provide greater options.
You want to fix something that is so broken, so dilapidated.
dilapidated. For the American people, Sean. That's what we all want.
We will take a break. Right back. Thank you for coming. And also, thank you. I want to thank Catherine as well. Thank you for being with us. Up next, another troubling number about the issue of Obamacare and their applications. We'll explain that when we get back. And then we're going to turn things over. This very anxious studio audience for the remainder of the program. You'll also hear from more Americans about canceled plans, about higher premiums, and what does it mean for you and your family as this special edition of Hannity continues. And welcome back to the studio audience edition of Hannity. Now, earlier in the program, we told you about the downright embarrassing number of enrollees on day one of the Obamacare rollout. But that's not the only thing troubling in terms of the numbers that we're learning about today, because the Washington Post said, quote, the first month of the new law rollout reveals an unexpected pattern in several states, a crush of people applying for an expansion of Medicaid, and a trickle of signups for private insurance. According to the report, in some places, 9 out of 10 enrollees, they're in Medicaid, causing not only a major imbalance in the program, but a grave concern that Obamacare is going to end up being a mere expansion of another entitlement program. Question is, was that the left's plan all along? We bring back our studio audience. David Webb, you were just telling me that.
Choice is the issue here. What they've done with Obamacare is remove choice from the market. The market is Americans. And the same Washington Post article projects budget forecasters that 9 million people will sign up for Medicaid in 2014. Yep. Only an expected 7 million shoppers would purchase private insurance plans. It's the choice that's been removed, but what's happened is Americans are making a choice. They say we're going to choose Medicaid, which is going to cost the American people more. So the net in the economy, whether you subsidize Obamacare, is that you are taking money out of the system and redistribute into another one. And choice is gone, Sean.
$700 billion out of Medicaid. Jedediah.
This is why are we surprised that choice is removed? I mean, this is what Obama wanted all the time. Government mandated health care. The reason why people are signing up for Medicaid, that I'm going to just trickle off from what David said, is they can't get on a crashed healthcare.gov website, and people like free stuff. This president has created a mentality that government is the solution. But I want to go back to what Judith was saying. The president is now a nominal figurehead. He doesn't know what's going on in his country. He's a bystander to government. He is a liar. This health care law was written that carries his name. He stood up in Boston 2 days ago, and you know what he said? Hey, guys, he still won't take accountability and apologize for the huge lie he's told. He told the American people, guys, look, the reason why your health care plan is getting canceled, like to the tune of $1 million by the end of December, is because it was substandard. And he said, you can shop around and get a better deal. And we heard from the young lady on the front row, the better deal means more health care coverage than I need and more health care coverage at a higher price.
Wants to argue
to pay for the people that we're dumping into, remember, this is all by design, like Katie said. You have individuals have to be canceled and pushed out of, I'm an individual, I'm a business owner. I got to be dumped out to pay for the exchanges.
This whole idea that the president didn't know is something that goes far beyond health insurance.
Yeah.
If you Google the term, the president, what Obama didn't know, you come up with literally dozens of headlines in the last couple weeks covering the IRS, on conservative groups, covering NSA, covering all types of different issues. He is trying to take himself out of it. It's not leadership. It's a crisis. It's a crisis of credibility.
I want to go to Rick Unger. Rick, you just heard from Natalie. You just heard from Catherine. Yeah. And you know what? There are millions of those Americans. Why do you justify this?
But here's, first of all, why do you justify not digging a little further? Let me tell you another horror story. We watched a woman. Wait. We watched a woman.
Did I ask him about another horror story? I asked him. You see, Natalie's 29 years old and helps put 14-year-old kids to sleep.
I know. How do you mean? I would like to sit down with Natalie and get on the exchange. And you know what else, Natalie, you didn't mention? Hold on a second. You know what else Natalie didn't mention? You know what else Natalie didn't mention? You know what else she didn't mention? You can buy a policy off the exchange. Have you checked that out?
This is the point, is you're sitting there and the president sat there and Democrats sat there over and over again saying, you have to do this. We don't care about your choice. You're limiting the choice. You're making people pay more. And now you're saying, come to a system that is broken. And it's not fair and it's too expensive.
All right, hang on. Natalie, hang on. Natalie, speak for yourself.
Okay, so I love the insurer that I have. Love them. I would be heartbroken to leave them. People don't love their insurers. I love my insurers. I love my doctors. My lifetime limit?
Yeah.
My out-of-pocket maximum, I think
No,
was...
what was your lifetime limits on the policy?
I believe it was...
You don't know.
I believe it was $300,000.
Well, hang on.
My insurer no longer...
She liked the plan. Go ahead.
My insurer
Let her finish.
My
Go ahead.
insurer no, according to what they have told me and what I've seen on their website, my insurer no longer provides plans that are not ACA compliant. So I don't have a choice within my own. I could go to someone else. I don't want to go to another insurer. I want to stay with my insurer.
I understand. Let me make the point
And I don't
this
care
way,
what
if I
my
may.
out-of-pocket. I don't care what the maximum
Whoa, hang on once before you do. You're a liberal and you think you know better for her.
That's right.
Let me tell you what I do know. Let me make the point. If I don't make the point, what's the point? If you go to buy a car, let me make the point.
Why are you telling people how they should do
Go
with
ahead,
their
Rick.
health?
Go ahead. He's getting frustrated.
If you go to buy a car, all right, and you don't pick up the hood, right? You buy the car, and then you get in the car to start. It doesn't start. You know why? There was no engine under the hood, and you didn't know it. You can have a problem with that. Just because. Wait, let me finish. Just because she bought the policy doesn't mean she knew it.
Hang on. Wait. You mean like Obama says, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. So he was selling us a car. If you like this car, you can buy this car, but it doesn't have an engine.
Sean, it doesn't matter if you like her plan or I like her plan or President Obama likes her plan. What matters is that she liked her plan, and she was promised that she could keep her plan. She was promised that she could keep it, and it was taken away. And now her costs are rising, and she's paying a consequence for something that was a promise unkept. That's the point.
Here's a very important sentence. Government, regardless of what it is, cannot create a marketplace. It cannot create a market. Therefore, by forced design or by unintended consequences, you're forcing Americans to make choices when they have the right to make crummy choices or good choices.
Sean, I just want to point out here, you mentioned the Federal Register and the regulations that came out on there. That was actually around June 17th, 2010.
That's right. By the way, I got that from your article. In fairness to you.
Well, actually, it was actually Ovik Roy over at Forbes.com. But actually, 5 days later, Barack Obama came out and he did a speech, and he talked about those regulations. That came from Labor, Treasury, as well as HHS. And in his speech, he began saying, oh, and by the way, I don't want these insurance companies blaming Obamacare in case their premiums go up. And that's the thing, was that he was getting ready for this because he wanted to make sure that he could blame the insurance companies.
Average family per year, $2,500 savings. All right, I know we've got more people to talk to, and some of you haven't spoken yet. We're going to get to you, I promise, when we come back. Stay right there. We'll have more with this lively studio audience right after the break. By the way, we always want to hear from you. Join our special companion site, HannityLive.foxnews.com. Follow the live show. Vote on our online poll. We're asking you tonight how confident you are that Obamacare. Do you like it? Well, anyway, HannityLive, FoxNews.com, on Twitter, @Sean Hannity, and we will continue. And welcome back to Hannity. We continue with our studio audience. Eileen, I want to go back to you because the Heritage Foundation's done a really good job of analyzing the cost increases state by state. Now, Richard Unger thinks he knows better. The president thinks he knows better. All these people are getting rate shock. What do you think the cumulative impact is going to be politically when it's 93 million people that lose a policy and then everybody gets the rate shock? Right. I think it's going to be devastating for the left.
I agree. And it's just one of many broken promises. You have increased costs in 43 states. These are premium increases in some states. For some people, they're going to be over 100%. You can't keep your plan. You're going to have premium increases, and millions of people are going to be impacted one way or another, be it by the cost increase, the 18 separate taxes, or losing their plan. Every American is going to be negatively impacted, and I hope that the American people wake up and get behind the movement to get rid of this law.
Sean, it's not just the cost, it's also the quality of care that we're talking about. You know, in the state of New Hampshire, there's one provider, Anthem. They only provide coverage at 14 of the 26 hospitals there. What happens to the people who want to use those other 12 hospitals? This is a quality of care issue. It's not just a cost issue.
Yes. Ron, let's go to Ron. Go ahead.
Republicans have to be
you're in Virginia,
champion.
right?
Yeah, I'm in Virginia. I'm running for Congress there. One of the reasons
Ken
I'm running.
Cuccinelli, by the way, his numbers are back
Because of Obamacare.
Because of Obamacare.
Especially, by the way, because young people are suffering because of this law. Young people are suffering because of this law. Premiums are up 45% for recent grads, 200% if you're a 30-year-old. And so what we have to do as a Republican Party is reach out and be the advocates to fight against this law, because we have to defend young Americans. And what's happening is we're in a great youth depression. We're in a great youth depression right now. Highest structural youth unemployment since the Great Depression, and we have to stand up. They can't afford to take. I'm 24.
You're 24. You're.
I'm 25, and if I can just paint a picture for people
I'm
for
51.
what it feels like to be a young person in your 20s nowadays. You have very low, high unemployment. You know, kids are moving back in with their parents. They can't afford their bills, and unless your parents pay for everything, which isn't the large majority of young people, you don't have the same hopeful attitude as our parents had, and that's a lot to deal with. We don't need another bill. And my generation is going to pay that $95 penalty fee rather than pay another bill for insurance. They've got student loans. It's crazy. It's tough to be a young person in the United States
you're
today.
a great political fundraiser. What impact does this have in 2014? I think the impact of rate shock, I think the impact of canceled policies, and a president repeatedly promising something that isn't true. I think you cross a line here.
I think it's going to be a big opportunity to raise money for Republican candidates, number one, because of this flub up that the Democrats have had, the White House. And I think number two, I think you're going to see a lot of people shift over to the GOP. Once they thought we were whack-a-birds and we thought they were nuts, I think you're going to see a lot of people that realize that it doesn't work.
In history.
So do the Democrats in a poll today.
They're heading that way, but the Republicans have no positive ideas.
Two quick points. The Heritage Foundation numbers, for one thing, don't take into account the subsidies, which more than half of the Americans who don't currently have insurance will qualify for. But the other thing that I would point out is Senator Al D'Amato. A number of things that he said I actually happen to agree with, and am not surprised because he's the only Republican I've ever voted for in my entire life. One of the things that he said is that Republicans need to be part of the solution here, if I can paraphrase what he said, and I agree with that. So why did it take 3.5 years for them to get engaged and start doing that? They were trying to repeal the law.
Wait, I want to address something Doug said. Doug, did you see the Carville-Greenberg poll today? Yeah. Devastating impact on Democrats in their districts, far greater than Republicans.
That is correct. And the Republican ratings in the Wall Street Journal poll, highest negatives in history.
And the president has the lowest numbers in his presidency.
The president's at 42, which is bad. But if there was a real Republican Party, the president would be in the 30s.
Right next, Mary, go ahead.
A couple of people have touched on this tonight, and I think we need to stop saying that the plan needs to be fixed, because this is rolling out exactly the way the liberals wanted to roll out. It's going to fail, and the big, wonderful government's going to swoop in and save us all from the
Single
evil.
payer.
Exactly. And it's going to be Medicaid. It is going to be universal Medicaid.
How many agree with that? How many agree with that? I agree with it too. I think
exactly the way it's supposed to.
Obama, we played it earlier this week. He even said, well, even Canada, they didn't start with a single payer. They transitioned, and he used the word transition a lot going back 2003, 2007. That's right.
And the
single payer.
And the Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid said that Obamacare was the first step towards single-payer health care. Right. He said that in August.
Obama. I don't have time. I got a break. They're yelling at me. All right, coming up. A lot more to get to. A spirited studio audience right here. Glad you're with us this Friday night on Hannity. Stay with us. And welcome back to Hannity. We continue with our very distinguished studio audience. Ed Rollins, when it comes to politics, I respect you a lot. I spent about an hour on my radio show today laying out the case. We're going to look back at the month of October 2013 as the month that most defined the Obama presidency. Lack of honesty, people don't trust him, broken promises, saying one thing repeatedly you knew wasn't true. What do you think the political fallout is?
I think he's going to diminish by the day, and I think the program's going to diminish. We have two big federal programs we started with. We had Medicare, which basically took care of the elderly. We had Medicaid, which took care of the poor. The problem is Medicare now is going to be more expensive for seniors, and they're going to not have all the services they've had, and that's everybody, that's a given, plus the $700 million. Medicaid is going to be overburdened by all these people jumping into it today, in which doctors are not going to, doctors and hospitals lose money on Medicaid, so you're going to break the two federal systems. I think it hurts Democrats, which Medicaid is obviously, they're more geared towards the poor Americans who need the help. Senior citizens are going to be furious. Obviously, I think that they're going to get...
And young people? Right, that are paying an increase. Keisha, you look.
Yeah, this is my issue. I admit that there's flaws in this Obamacare, but we need to give our president more credit. He didn't intend to be a liar. There's flaws. But I think we need to look at what the intent of Obamacare was. It wasn't to deceive the American people. It was to try to correct. It was to try to correct an overall problem with all Americans. And
How do
we
you
have
tell
a
a lie and
healthcare
it's not to
crisis.
deceive? No, this is benign stupidity. Like
We're
the Washington
focusing
Post.
on the wrong issue instead of throwing
4 Pinocchios in the Washington Post is a benign way of saying you lied.
Senator Al D'Amato, sir.
All right, let me give you the political fix. Number one.
By the way, you're the only person that's not partnered with anybody. It's sort of like, I don't know what that means.
I'd love to move over here. Hey, honey, how are you, babes? My wife is seeing this. I'm in trouble.
You're in trouble. I'll write you a note.
Heck you, please.
Yeah.
I'll give you a little thing. Ted Cruz, a wacko.
No, he's not.
Yeah, let me finish. Very bright, very smart, but so political that if he had really used that great intelligence of us, he would have warned and said, these are the pitfalls. And you could have spelled out the pitfalls. You could have spelled out the pitfalls of what would take place, how young people wouldn't come in, how the system couldn't support itself, how you would be... Let me finish.
He did it in 20 hours, 19 minutes.
Yeah. And step aside. Don't shut down the government, because you would have had people looking at this, and Obama and the program would have been in much worse political shape. It's still going to attract attention, and people are now, for the first time, coming and saying, "My God, I didn't know about that. My premiums are going up. I didn't know." So, having said that, let me conclude. And I'll no filibuster here.
Oh, no.
Well, don't forget.
Go ahead. I know.
Okay. I had a pretty long one myself, 13 hours. Okay. But let me conclude by saying this. It will be very difficult to fix, and I think that you're going to see the Medicaid expansion that we've talked about huge. And I think you're going to continue to see the average American is going to pay, whether you're in a big company plan or a small individual plan, much more, and you're going to get less.
All right, let me go to Katie, because I'm with you, Katie. I think Cruz, Rand, Mike Lee helped this. And nobody in America right now remembers a government shutdown.
Right.
Everybody in America will remember this debacle of a website and this disastrous rollout.
Well, first of all, Ted Cruz is one of the only people who went to Washington and did exactly what he said he was going to do, which is fight against Obamacare. Second, he talked about, I watched Ted Cruz's filibuster. I stayed up to watch it. And guess what? For 20 plus hours, Ted Cruz laid out all of the problems, told the stories, laid out all the details, how much it would cost, who it would affect, that young people not only would not come into the system, but they're responsible for paying for it in the end, whether it's now or later. He laid that out for everyone to know.
How many think Ted Cruz helped? I think he did.
Let me make it quick before you take the poll.
Okay.
If he had not worked and got my friends on the Republican side to shut down the government, he would have been, of course, listen.
Noel.
But Tashawn had a question about the credibility of Democrats.
Nobody's going to remember. We'll take a break. We'll come back. More thoughts from our very quiet, demure audience after this. Straight ahead. Welcome back to Hannity. Time for some closing thoughts. Do you guys want to talk like that?
I want to get to Sean's point on the president's credibility, because as a liberal, I really want to say that I do think that the president has a credibility issue right now. I think that his speech in Boston, Crystal mentioned it earlier, was a perfect time. It was a perfect time to come out. And if you let me speak, Crystal, if he would take the time to, that was a perfect time to own it and say, you know what, this thing has gone awry. And he should have. But that is a separate issue. Everybody in here, that's a separate issue.
The president has never owned any mistake he's made in his entire administration. Fast and Furious. Katie's written in depth about that. Benghazi, IRS targeting. But I want to go back to what Senator D'Amato said. I admire Ted Cruz. I admire Mike Lee. They are trying to fight against this. However, where the Republicans failed and got off track is they focused on defunding Obamacare rather than pointing out delaying the individual mandate, which the president, Ebony, he did, right? He delayed it 6 weeks because it's a failure.
Real quick.
It doesn't matter. Listen, I think everyone agrees that this is a flawed law, but now it's time to not only recognize it, but go back to the table, repeal it, and put in common sense insurance reforms that are going to be beneficial to the American people.
It would be great if we were having this discussion. If we were having this discussion and the Republican Party had a plan that was a pro-free market approach that was sitting on a website that worked, wouldn't this be a great discussion? They dropped the ball. We have to hold them accountable. They dropped the ball after Hillary Care. They cannot drop the ball again. Get on it. You have good ideas. You need to counteract this nonsense.
Should the plan be health care savings accounts? That's what I would want.
It needs to be a plan. It needs to be something you go to voters with and you say, this is what we stand for.
Fix it. Use free market principles. Allow a cross-border insurance with health-saving accounts. A multiplicity of approaches.
Yes, but in the meantime, just some advice to protect yourself. If you're a baby boomer, line up your doctors now, even if you're healthy, an internist, a cardiologist. If you wait until you turn 65 and go on Medicare, you will not find a doctor willing to take you on as a new patient. And if you're going to the hospital and you know it, cobble together enough money for a private duty nurse the first night, because the hospitals are already laying off the nurses. You're going to find too little care and wait too long for help.
Let me turn this.
And
Natalie,
that's important advice.
By the way, you've held your own with some of the best and brightest professionals in the world of punditry. I'm going to give you the final word tonight because you're living this. We invited you here as our guest to tell a story. You're 29. You're losing coverage. You're paying more. What's your final thought?
I think that it makes me feel like I can either work really hard and live a mediocre life, or I can not work hard and live a mediocre life. And to someone like me who's not a politician, it makes me feel like it's never going to get fixed because people aren't really working.
Are you mad that you can't keep your plan?
Yeah, I'm really mad.
You know what? I'm more.
Yes, that makes me furious. What makes me more upset is the
Give yourselves
whole problem.
A big hand.
Thank you
for coming. All right, and that is all the time we have left this evening. Thank you for being with us. Start your day with Fox and Friends each weekday and weekend morning. We'll see you back here Monday.